All right, I'm Katie Harwood. I am the manager of events at the Chamber of Commerce, and I manage our Access Tallahassee program, which is what you've tuned into, First Cup with Access Tallahassee. We have created this event for some of you newcomers. I see a lot of you on the call. We have created this event in the midst of all of this just as a way to stay connected until we can all meet in person again. So we have been having various speakers and guests, young professionals on, and we're very excited for our very own Jay Revell this morning. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Everyone should have logged in. Just go ahead and mute yourself for now. I have a couple questions to get us going, and then since we are a larger group this morning, I would definitely recommend utilizing the chat box function to ask your questions. So just go ahead and type it in, send it directly to me or to everyone, however you prefer. You can also use the raise your hand function. It's going to be on the bottom of your toolbar for those of you who are newer to Zoom, under participants, and you can raise your virtual hand and I'll see it and be able to unmute you and call on you. We have, let's see, Skylar, are you on the call?
I am.
Awesome. We have a sponsor this morning. Trulieve has sponsored our Coffee and Connections event, which is what this ended up taking the place of originally, and we've just brought them on for the ride. So Trulieve is our sponsor for First Cup, and Skylar Hunt is here to say a few words about Trulieve. What's going on over there?
A whole bunch. We have launched several new products this week, so we're still rocking and rolling. Thankfully, we've been deemed essential. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with my camera right now, so I may pop on randomly. But anyways, so we launched a True Talk series, which are educational series on Facebook Live twice a week in April, and now they're going to be once a week in May. So they range from resources available during COVID-19, like how to apply for unemployment and stuff, all the way down to meditation practices and stretches you can do at your desk. So we have those. We have one next week all around the CARES Act with Andrew Gay. So he's going to be our guest on that. If anyone wants to tune in, it's just on Trulieve's Facebook page. At 12 o'clock. But besides that, we're still doing the same. We're doing more deliveries now than ever. So we're hiring. We're actually hiring in the Tallahassee area. So if any of you are interested or have anyone that you know needs a position right now, please feel free to send me an email with their name and I can push it along to our recruiter. But I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Without further ado, hi, Jay Revell.
Hi, Katie.
How you doing?
I'm just happy as a jaybird. Life is good.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
You know, spent my morning chasing my toddler around, which is always fun. Having a good time. Watched Moana for about the 1300th time in the last few weeks, but life is good. I'm doing great. Family's good. Another beautiful day. Chamber of Commerce weather again. I think we're on a good stretch. Even though we're working remotely, our Chamber of Commerce weather machine is working great over at HQ. So, yeah, life is good.
Awesome, awesome. Why don't you introduce yourself for those who may not know you as well as I get to, since I get to work with you?
Sure. So, my name's Jay Revell. I'm Vice President for Public Policy and Advocacy at the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. I have been there now for just over 4 years. Actually celebrated my 4-year anniversary via quarantine. So, yeah, time flies when you're having fun. But yeah, I've been at the chamber for a while now. My background, I started off right out of college working for John Daly before he was our illustrious mayor, when he was just a good old-fashioned county commissioner working hard for District 3. And I ran his office for a few years right out of college. Then I was blessed to have an opportunity to run the Tallahassee Downtown Improvement Authority for a few years after that. And then I was actually, since we're in Access Tallahassee world here today, I was the chair of Access Tallahassee for a year, which, yeah. Did you have to suffer through that?
I did, just a few parts of it. Yeah, that's when we ended happy hour council meetings.
Yeah, I always kind of jokingly, but somewhat seriously tell everyone that when I was chair of Access and on the chamber board, I ran my mouth so much, the quickest way they could shut me up was just to hire me. So they did, and so I've been there with all you fine folks for the last 4 years, and just honored to be on a great team. Love the work we do. Love working with Sue and everyone. It's a lot of fun, and I've got a little family over here. Got my wife Sarah, my daughter Winnie. We're having a good time, hanging out with each other every day right now. And life is good. I've always had a background in public policy, in the realms of the political theater here locally, and I've got a master's degree from Florida State in applied American politics and policy. So that's just kind of always been where I spend my time and hang out. Do a lot of stuff in the public affairs realm too. That's I kind of a jack of all trades with anything in that world for our team, but it's a lot of fun.
We appreciate you. You're a very valued team member.
I appreciate that.
You are in the world of public policy, so you are happy to keep up with some of this stuff. Governor DeSantis released phase 1 on Wednesday, rather late in the day. Give us just a quick overview of what all that entails. It's not that much, if I have been understanding correctly.
Yeah, I think the key thing to remember probably for the coming months is that things are going to happen in phases. We've been on, I don't know how many different Zoom calls and virtual meetings with our friends at the Florida Chamber of Commerce and other organizations over the last month and a half. Kind of, you initially go through the shock of the economy basically being completely paused, to then how are we going to respond to that? What kind of things are going to happen both at the local, state, and federal level to help people get through. And we've kind of moved through that phase now to where we're in this reopening stage. And what you're seeing is just the first part of that. Next Monday, the new executive order goes into effect, which changes a couple of key things. It's going to allow people to start to open their businesses back up. Restaurants are one of the things that kind of, the hospitality industry has just been hit tremendously hard, but you'll start to see them get a little bit more leeway to do some things. Restaurants can open up to about 25% capacity. Their outdoor seating can start to happen again. Still no haircuts, unfortunately. If you're anyone who's getting a little shaggy like me, no gyms. A lot of the stuff is going to stay closed. It's been closed, but if some of the businesses that have been allowed to operate will be allowed to operate a little bit more, you'll start to see a little bit more ability for people to get out and participate in commerce. And, the governor's done a great job, I think, as far in our local elected officials done a tremendous job as well on a few fronts. But what you're seeing is a very data-driven approach. They're looking at our numbers. Florida has done very well when compared to a lot of other states. One thing that's important to remember, doesn't necessarily affect us all that directly, but Southeast Florida is really the hot spot, Miami-Dade, Broward, and those areas. And so they're going to continue to operate under a little bit stricter guidelines. And local governments actually have the ability to maintain some stricter guidelines as well. This order does not preempt local governments from doing more. And you'll see a little bit of a variation between how governments react, because in every local community is a little bit different. Here in Leon County, I think we've done a pretty good job, in pretty good shape for the most part. But even some of our neighboring counties are having some challenges, especially up to the north in Georgia. But yeah, so it's going to be a little bit different depending on where you are. But the good news is we're in that first phase. We're starting to open back up. And I think over the next few months, you'll just start to see that gradually happen as our officials track the data and stay consistent with what leading experts in the healthcare industry are telling us.
And so all I've heard is that Georgia's been open. People are a little skeptical of it. How are we measuring up to some of our neighbors?
Yeah, Georgia kind of was the first state to really jump back in, opening a lot of things up. Remains to be seen what kind of effect that will have, not only on us, but just on their state. I'm sure they're monitoring numbers very closely. I know a lot of people in Florida, particularly sort of up here in the border states, our border counties like us, people are concerned about folks traveling into the state that maybe have been affected. But, we're a couple of months into this thing. Nationally, we're still learning more and more by the day. Again, our friends at the Florida Chamber have been such valuable partners for us, because through their weekly calls, we've been able to just be completely saturated with data and information about how each community in Florida is doing and what we all need to be doing to make sure that we're being safe now and safe in the way that we reopen our economy.
And so you said our local elected officials can kind of adjust the rules a little bit. They just can't go more lenient.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the state government basically sort of sets the bar on the floor, I suppose you'd say, and then if local governments want to go above and beyond that, they have the ability to do that. So you'll see some of the beach communities near us. I know Franklin County they'll start to reopen some of their beaches on Monday. Our local officials here are still evaluating what their response is going to be. But so far, I think we've done a great job on the local level, in particular. And one of the things that makes our community very unique is how we fund some of our services. Our blueprint sales tax that we have, that 1 cent sales tax, which has traditionally been strictly for infrastructure. In 2014, when we reauthorized that tax, we allowed for up to 12% of those funds to be used for economic development activities. And that's what funds our Office of Economic Vitality. Christina Paredes is the director there, doing a great job. And what our local government decided to do was give some sort of almost bridge funds, but while people were waiting to get funding from higher levels of government in their response, you could get and apply for a small grant that you don't have to pay back to allow your business to sort of get through in that interim. And they did over $1.1 million in local grants, which is really a model for the rest of the country. I was talking to the mayor recently. They've had local governments from all over the state, even the nation, kind of inquire, hey, how did you do this? Well, we've got this funding available to us to do it. And I'm really glad that we did. They've also done a wave of that funding for nonprofits, which is still available, actually, for those who may be interested in that. You can find all that information over at our website, talchamber.com, on our COVID-19 resource page, and also at OEV's page. So, I think we got a lot to be proud of with our local response here, for sure.
I would agree. There's some really positive stuff that has come out of it, and it's been an opportunity for the city and the county to shine, essentially, in the midst of all of this. Speaking of shining, I kind of want to pivot a little bit. I know we build this as like an all things reopening, but that was before DeSantis' phase 1, and it was a little, I don't want to say thin, but it really only gives us a few options for reopening. So I kind of want to pivot and pick your brain as a VP of the Chamber. What do you think the future of the Chamber looks like? So there's been a lot of efforts. I know I'm in events, so my world's been slightly quieter than some of the advocacy and communication side of things. But y'all have been working so hard to keep members informed. What are some ways that the Chamber has kind of leapt into this world in a positive way?
If hopefully you all subscribe to our emails and read the weekly column that I have the pleasure of writing for our team called 300 East Park Avenue. But today's was titled The Chamber of the Future. And we talked a little bit about some of that. I think we're very fortunate. Always like the expression, I'd rather be lucky than good, but damn if it ain't bad being both. And I think about our team in that sense. Over the last couple of years, we've really ramped up our production in the digital space, the things that we're offering, bringing to our members via a variety of channels. And I think they're quite good. They continue to improve. We continue to bring on staff that has multifaceted talents that apply to those things. And as we've ramped those things up, we didn't know it at the time, but we were preparing ourselves for this moment. And now, you look, you lose track of time. I guess, what are we, 6-7 weeks into this? Mm-hmm. We've all been working remotely, but we've never produced more content, business-related content, than ever. This is the most we've ever put out. And I think that's a signal to where a lot of things are going to be going. Now, again, as I mentioned in the column today, we're always going to be a in-person gathering organization. That's not going to change. That's not going anywhere. Now, granted, to your point, it's going to be different for a little while. We don't, we're waiting for these next phases to roll out from the governor and other leaders. But, we're also going to be that trusted convener in a digital way. We're going to be an organization that brings people together through meetings just like this, through the webinars that Dana Knowles has been producing. Those have been tremendous resources. Through the videos that our very own Sarah Solomon cranks out, through the variety of posts that Sam Lobig's doing. If you haven't seen our new weekly updates that Tyler Zimmerman's doing for us, those are tremendous. Our LT team is cranking stuff out. World Class Schools is about to do the best and brightest ceremony completely digitally. Again, I like to think that we've been preparing for this moment. We just didn't know that it was going to be thrust on us maybe in this way. But the things we've been doing over the last couple of years, I think, are really coming into form. And I think over the next few years moving forward, you'll see some more creative things coming from our organization to drive a lot of value to our members and be a preeminent source for business-related content in our community.
Absolutely. And so I was reading 300 East Park, and obviously I've been in the office, so I know that there have been conversations going on about what the Chamber 2.0 kind of looks like to the future, because things are shifting. The way people want to consume their information is changing, and obviously now it's completely changed. What do you think, just generally speaking, members are going to be looking for from just a chamber in general? Is that
I think people are going to want to know what the future looks like, and I think we have a unique opportunity as an organization who works extremely closely with business leaders, with other institutional leaders here in our community, to be a group that sort of paints that picture for people, sort of helps our other leaders from various capacities throughout the community set what those goalposts should look like. And Tallahassee has an incredibly bright future in full as a community. I've been here. I came to Florida State in 2005. So what was that? 15 years now. Moved over from the small town of Havana where I grew up, living that big city life over here now. And it's just incredible how fast and how much our community has grown and evolved. It is night and day different. The offerings that we have here are tremendous. And I think you're going to continue to see Tallahassee be a place that more and more communities are looking to see how we're evolving. Again, I go back to the point I was making earlier about the OEV funding and that blueprint funding being available right now. We do some pretty innovative things as a community. We have our growing pains like anyone else does. People like to have debates about the future, and I hope the Chamber of Commerce is a place where those debates happen. And we arm our business members and other folks with the best information and intelligence possible, so that when they are fighting for the future of our community, they have all the tools necessary to do so in a really compelling way. And I think that's a big part of it. I think, again, I like the phrase Ron Sachs uses, trusted convener. That's what we try to do. We've done a lot of that in the last few weeks. We're doing that now. And I think we'll continue to be a trusted convener in many ways. And I think a lot of things that you'll see along those lines will happen digitally too. Again, think of how convenient it is for everyone right now to be able to walk down the hall or into their office and jump on a call like this and learn a few things about our community. Now, we still want to be able to get people together and have coffee for our events. Those are great. That's invaluable. But convenience is a big, big deal. People's time, unfortunately, sort of continues to shrink, it feels like. And if the way that we can best connect with people is in short bursts digitally, that's important, and we need to make sure we're doing that. And I think we are. So I think you'll see a lot of that layered in with the other things that we traditionally do.
I love that. And I think it was Terry Ard from More Agency and Women's Forum on Tuesday who said that a lot of businesses are using this opportunity to kind of come out on the other side, a little bit evolved, like now more than ever is the time to transform yourself a little bit if you were ever wanting to make those changes, whether it's personally or professionally. And I think that applies to the chamber as well. I mean, we're advocates for businesses, but we have to look at ourselves as a business as well. So it's a great time to kind of come out of this changing some things. And I think it's more important now than ever to hear from our members too. I think that information that we're getting back is going to help us plan for that.
100%. I mean, and for us, it's pretty quick to judge how you're doing on a new program, right? I mean, if it's an event in your world, did people show up? Did they register? Did they come? Did they enjoy it? Did we get good feedback via survey and other things? If the answer is yes, then you keep doing it. And what we've continued to find with, particularly in this digital space, is people keep showing up. They keep responding. They keep registering for webinars. They keep joining these Zoom calls. They keep watching our videos. They keep reading our columns, listening to our podcasts. And, as long as people keep showing up, as long as people keep wanting to find information those ways, we're going to continue to produce those things and hopefully continue to learn along the way and bring them to you all in the best fashion possible. I'm really proud of just everything we've got out there in the digital landscape. And again, the most impressive part, to brag on ourselves for a minute, brag on our team for a minute, is just, none of us have seen each other and haven't been in the same room together for a month and a half, yet we're producing things at a higher rate than ever with better and better quality. And, to your point about taking this time to learn and evolve, I also know that a lot of our team members are becoming better at their craft with the things that we're all producing in-house right now, because you also are learning some things. You're spending some time maybe watching some videos on YouTube on how to make your video better, Sarah. I know, we're all learning constantly. We're coming up with new ideas. We're being inspired by what others are doing. And so, it's sort of a rapid A/B test always. And one of the things that's great about the digital sphere is we can A/B test things much quicker than we can and much more efficiently and more cost effectively than you can with some of the live stuff. So if you go have a live event, a live luncheon, and it's a bust, there's a pretty real financial consequence to that. But we don't do anything that busts, by the way. But if you do something digitally, it's pretty low barrier to entry, and you can do it and get it up pretty quick. So we're trying a lot of things. I think a lot of stuff's working, and I'm excited to see what we come up with next.
I think that's been my favorite part through all of this, is just in general throughout the community ways people have changed to adapt and how creative everyone's had to get, offering Target Coffee, offering signs to everybody, restaurants suddenly offering family meals, different changes and tweaks like that. It's just been cool. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, no, innovation happens when your back's against the wall. There are certain pressures in play right now. It doesn't make it easy for anybody. I mean, these are tough times for a lot of folks. But I mean, gosh, we've got a file folder, that's 2 or 3 pages long now, where we've been collecting as a staff little anecdotes that we've seen from companies in the last couple of months doing really creative things. And I tell you, I've seen some of the best content, some of this original thinking that I've ever seen from some of our local folks. I mean, it's just really impressive. When times are changing and they're changing fast, you got to respond quickly. And fortunately, we've got a very resilient business community here that has shown just how creative they can get.
I feel like I'm kind of monopolizing the question. So if you guys have one, please raise your hand down at the bottom of the bar, put it in the chat box. I don't want to hog all of the time yet again. So, but while, we wait for a couple of those to come in, I was reading Blake Dowling's article in Florida Politics. He says, we love Blake Dowling. If you don't know him, you should, about working remotely and kind of how this is going to change office space, how employees work and connect in the future. What do you think? How do you think this is going to shift permanently? Do you think there's going to be a shift, or maybe it's temporary and then by 21, we're all back working 40 hours in the office, no sunlight, just...
I certainly don't think it will be like a light switch, where all of a sudden everybody's, filing back into the office. I think you're going to see hybrids, a lot of hybrid models. This is just Revell's prediction. So, with that and $2, you can buy a cup of coffee. But I think you'll see a lot of hybrid models because, again, I think about our team, right? Think about how productive. I think our productivity has gone through the roof. And, not saying we don't all want to go back to the office. We like being around each other. We're also highly productive in that environment, and a lot of creative forces happen there. And that's a good thing. We want to keep doing that. But I also think, you'll see much more flexibility. I think you'll see companies, we've always, read and seen people talk about our generation a lot, right? And these pesky millennials we all are, and the things we like to do and see that are so much different than others. But, I think what this has proven is that folks can work remotely. They can be highly productive. They can be very successful in those roles. And if you need to work from home for a day, it's probably going to be okay. I think you're going to continue to see a lot of companies innovate. I think when you see a scenario, when you talk about how you retain talent and being creative and how you offer workspace environments to people, I think this is something that can be a pretty attractive way for people to try to entice people to come and stay to work with them. Hey, we'll give you so many hours a week. You can work from home. Give you some flexibility. If you need to take a trip or you need to be with family, that's fine. We can get it done. So I think flexibility is going to be the thing that you see more and more of, and some of that's going to be probably required. Again, this phased approach to reopening doesn't really have a deadline on it. It may occur over 6 months, 8 months. I mean, odds are the next year you'll probably still see things being just brought back to some normalcy. And what we know is normal on the other side of this is certainly going to be different. I don't think anybody believes that where we're going is a back to where we were. It's going to be some new things. It's going to be a lot of new and different scenarios out there. And I think one of the things that companies are going to have to figure out is how can we merge this new existence with what we do so well, and do it in ways that our employees respond well and are highly productive and motivated.
Absolutely. I think that has been the key. I think that's been revealed to be the most important thing. It doesn't matter how anyone's being productive. It just matters that they are being productive.
That's right.
And however it takes to get there. So I think that's going to take precedent over the standard 40-hour a week.
I agree with you.
Yeah. We've got a couple questions in the chat box from Russ. We're starting phase 1. What does the assumed projected timeline look like, and what does the data need to show to move to the next phase?
That's a great question. So essentially what you're looking for is a couple of key indicators. This is sort of from the White House all the way down to the local level, right? You're looking to see what your positive confirmed test rate is. So the percentage of people who test positive out of the entire population who has been tested. Here in Leon County, for example, I think we're just under 7%. I think it's 6.8% last time I saw the numbers earlier this week. That's good. That's where you want to be. You want to be sort of in that south of 10%, single digits, and dropping. So if we can show, a couple of weeks as testing continues to expand, you want to see that percentage continue to decline. And so that's one of the things that leaders are looking for is, are those percentages declining in communities across the state? Is the state average declining? Dr. Jerry Parrish at Florida Chamber points out the sort of 14-day moving average of total new confirmed cases. And he did that the other day, and that's where we are seeing that curve turn to the downward side. So the reason that you're seeing Florida start to phase in opening right now is that our total amount of daily confirmed cases is on a downward trend.
Didn't we peak at on April 12th? I think was been reported.
April 12th was the day that they shared as our peak, looking backwards right now. Now, again, the reason you go through this phased approach for the reopening is you want to see how those numbers respond as you start to bring things back online. They start to tick back up, you might see some tightening again. So we'll be watching the numbers very closely. I know our local officials are watching the numbers closely. just to kind of give you folks just, again, a thought, here in Leon County, things are pretty good. We've got a pretty good stable hold, I think, on where things are right now. But, you look just to the east and west of us, Gadsden County's percentage for positive tests right now is north of 15%. So is Jefferson County. And again, I think as they do more testing, broader testing, you'll see those numbers come down. But those are things that people are looking at very, very closely. And again, I think, once you start talking a few phases out, there'll be all kinds of interesting things that will, you might have to get your temperature taken before you get on an airplane. Might have to, sit a little bit further away at Doak Campbell Stadium this fall, we hope. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be different.
More questions from the chat box. Michael McDougall, chamber event question. Is chamber conference canceled, postponed? Also, are all in-person access meetings canceled? I can probably answer that. And Jay,
I'm going to say, that sounds like your department.
Yeah, that's kind of finally something to do. Just kidding. I've been very busy. But conference is not canceled for right now. We are monitoring things very carefully. We're following CDC guidelines. We're waiting for phase 1 to play out, see what phase 2 looks like. But right now we're in close communication with our speakers in the hotel, with sponsors and things like that. And so right now it is still happening. So there's that. May events will be held virtually because we are still in phase 1. There weren't a lot of, there's not a lot of wiggle room to open up to meet in large groups. So things like your power lunch, so we don't really need 75 people, slopping food off the buffet line right now. So we're going to host that virtually later in the month. Coffee and connections, we don't all need to be hugging on each other right now. It's really for your safety. So we are going to continue virtually through May and kind of reevaluate for June.
Yeah, exactly. I think you'll probably see regular updates again from the governor, but as we get probably halfway through May, you'll see some evaluation on what looks, what June will start to look like. So just being methodical and trying to put our members first, right? And make sure everybody's got a safe opportunity to learn what they need to learn. But I know everybody's looking forward to Amelia Island probably more than ever. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on with everybody, and a lot to learn. I think, Dana, you can crank the anxiety up a little bit. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be an interesting and unique challenge for us to be able to put on a great show, but we always do. So looking forward to it.
Another question, where will your family's first stop be as things start to open back up? That one's for you, Jay.
Well, golf course has been open for a while, so I'm doing okay there. But, we're big Tallahassee museum people. We like to take Winnie out there and stroll around and look at the animals. One thing that they did allow, it'll be interesting to see kind of how some of our local institutions respond. One of the things that the governor has allowed is that museums and institutions like that can open back up, but at that 25% capacity. So fingers crossed, maybe we will be able to get back into some of these great places. When I was at the Downtown Improvement Authority, we were always trying to promote some of our great museums and things that we have in the area. One that I look forward to being able to go back to, particularly in the summer, the Florida Museum of History downtown, if you've never been, is a tremendous resource for our community, and it's air conditioned and it's free. It's a great place. They've got very kid friendly activities in there too. So as things start to open up and maybe get a little warmer, that's a good one to put on your radar.
That was my first job in Tallahassee.
Oh, that's right. People, if you don't know,
wonderful tour. I used to do the tours.
Katie's our historian. She's our on-staff historian here at the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. We're lucky to have you.
Russ has a question. In Dr. Parrish's presentation, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Jerry Parrish is with the Florida Chamber. Did he note his expectations and projections for the economy?
I think a lot of it will depend on how well the reopening goes. If things go swiftly, I think you can see a pretty sharp return in the fourth quarter of the year. Maybe even in the third. This quarter is obviously going to be a record-breaking, numbers for unemployment. I mean, where are we up to now? North of 30 million U.S. unemployed. Florida, I think earlier in the week, the numbers are 1.1. I'm not sure what the added total was this week. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a rough quarter for a lot of folks. If you haven't had a chance, folks, to tune into the Tallahassee Business Podcast, which we produce every week, we've had some really good shows of late. We had Mark Wilson of the Florida Chamber of Commerce on there a couple of weeks ago. That's a good one to listen to. Obviously, he's talking to some of the biggest businesses in the whole state and really in the country, and getting some good projections out of there. But yeah, I think if the reopen goes well, and we don't see any stumbles along the way, I think you'll see a pretty nice, robust return later in the year. And that's what Dr. Parrish has been saying. I had a chance to talk with him offline the other day, and yeah, very troubling trends right now. But if you go back again, talking about our podcast, we had Dr. Parrish on in a regular version of our podcast, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. And this seems a little prophetic now, but he said good economies don't die of bad age, they die of shock. And that's what we're going through. We're going through a shock to our system that's unlike anything we've ever seen before. And when we get on the other side of that, when we can get back to some normalcy, there's no really other reason that our economy is in trouble. We've seen a lot of positive trends for a long time. Consumer sentiment was really good before we got into this mess. But I think people will be eager to get back out and do a lot of things that they love and enjoy. But it's going to be interesting to see. There probably also will be some conservative-minded folks who just want to ease back into things. It's going to be interesting. But I think there's a potential for a lot of innovation. You'll see some companies and some organizations that have come up with new ways of doing things that really, truly will break out and be massively successful. Here we are on Zoom. How many people had ever been on a Zoom call, prior to 2 months ago? Companies innovate when their back's against the wall. So there'll be some interesting things happening, I believe.
And how do our job numbers tie into that? We had a question in here of our local unemployment landscape. Yeah. I know you've got March numbers, I think.
Yeah, so our March numbers came out. We were up. I think our unemployment rate in February was 2.2%, and now it's 4.4%. So, pretty sharp incline there. There were, I'm trying to recall the number off the top of my head, I want to say about 3,500 jobs lost just in March. We'll see those April numbers come out here in a couple of weeks. Usually on the 17th of the month is when those drop. So I imagine the April numbers will be probably a little bit higher. And, hopefully we'll start to see some things return to a positive trend in May. The good news is when you still look year over year, Tallahassee's job numbers have been pretty darn good the last few years. I mean, we continue to see our record high amount of employment inching north month by month. And typically the spring, we sort of have a trough cycle here. There's some seasonality in our local economy, I think, as we all know. But you have a spring peak that usually happens, in that April-May window. Things slow down a little bit during the summertime. And then the fall, you see things kind of drive back up to that fall peak in November as people start spending money getting ready for Christmas and things. But so a little bit of a weird anomaly to see this dip this time of year, but I think we're going to be able to respond well once we get on the other side of it.
Philip Browning asks, with the reopening happening, have there been any speculations on schools and universities resuming on-campus classes, schedule next year, or are we still waiting to see?
Yeah, I know that obviously our universities are just dying to get people back. Here being on campus is such an essential part of the learning experience, and they're monitoring the governor's guidance. I think they are all planning to be open in the fall, but everyone has to have the contingency plan right now of what may happen if things don't go according to plan. So I'm sure that everyone's eager to get campuses back reopen, both from a educational standpoint and from a business standpoint. Those are such huge engines in our community. FSU, FAMU, TCC, Flagler, all of they're just tremendous resources. And it brings such an energy to our community when you have your students here. And I know everybody's looking forward to that, but they're trying to make sure they can do it in the most safe and reasonable way possible. And obviously that's a huge priority for the governor. But yeah, I think they're running through some contingency plans, but everybody's really excited to be back on campus this fall, we hope.
In college football, so DeSantis said that we can have sporting events, but like no one can come watch. That's correct, right?
For now.
But
yeah.
So football should still be happening. We just might not be sweating in Doak Campbell Stadium.
I think you'll see, a lot of things come back, but it will be different. And what that looks like, it remains to be seen. So it will be interesting to see how that all rolls out and how it all comes together. But I know everybody is super, super anxious to try to get things back to normal, and we all want to watch our favorite teams play this fall. It's such an important part of our culture and who we are as a community, and hopefully that will happen as scheduled.
I see a huge run on FSU and college geared masks going on.
Oh yeah, that's
someone
right.
should start on that now and make $1 million.
I like that. That's good. I hear Van Pelt piping up. What you doing, buddy?
Jay, how's it going, man?
What's up, brother?
Quick question for you. So you mentioned, and obviously, it's not a new concept now that we're, month plus into this, but these new sort of digital skills that employees and business leaders alike are honing during this time. Do you see this as sort of a watershed moment for the next generation of business leaders, sort of opening and running businesses that are really efficient, really effective without an office space? Because I'm sure you're having the similar conversations with folks that I am around, like, well, heck, I don't know that I'm going to need to spend $20,000 a year renting an office when I can get the same done from, my living room and, Midtown and North Side and wherever my team is spread out. Do you see this as being kind of a catalyst for a whole different business environment moving forward?
Yeah, I do. I think you'll see a lot of new and interesting things happen. And again, you'll have a lot of people, just like you had in the last, the Great Recession. You have people who lose their jobs, who lose the thing that they're doing on a day-to-day basis right now, and have to come up with a new way to make a living. Again, they're with backs against the wall. People tend to come up, with some pretty good ideas from time to time. I think about my good friend and our chamber board member Matt Tharp a lot. Lost his job during the recession in the construction industry, went out, started his own, and has just been killing it ever since. I mean, there'll be a lot of people who I think find new creative ways to produce some revenue for themselves. You'll find, again, the tools that we have available are just unbelievable. I mean, you can go right now, you can get a Shopify account and create an online store in a half an hour and have drop shipping available to you. We don't even have to have any inventory. I mean, it's wild what you can come up with and what you can create in the world today. Our society has certainly proved we have an insatiable hunger for endless amounts of content. Jamie, I know you're in that world. You're producing stuff. By the way, I'm assuming your double logo in there right now, which, I mean.
As we do, baby.
This guy, see? He's a billboard. I love it.
You got to see things 7 times before they can recall it, Jay.
Damn right. That's 2 right there. So, yeah, I mean, but that's the point, right? I mean, everybody's innovating. You're seeing some real creativity come out. And I think you're going to see people who really look back and see this as a make or break moment. There'll be people that are huge successes that we haven't even heard of yet that look back on this time as saying, that's when it really clicked for me. That's when I recognized an opportunity, and that's when I seized on it, and we got it done. So I think you're going to see some pretty neat stuff come out of this.
And I think, and I'm going to completely botch this statistic number, but I've read about, and I know Corey Melton does talent, and she has said that in the next 10, 20 years, there are like thousands of jobs that are going to need to be filled that don't even exist right now. And
Oh, yeah.
so we're looking to the future. And I feel like this is going to shock start it. I mean, I think if we were looking at a 10-year window, we might be looking at a 5-year window because, I mean, look at everything that's updated. Like you said, I mean, Zoom has updated, Microsoft Teams has had to update in a week's notice when usually you'd have to like wait and wait and wait and wait. So we know they're capable of it. And so now suddenly they're going to have to be filling all of that, these roles that have suddenly been created.
Yeah, I like to say that, crises are societal accelerants. You'll see things that normally would take 2, 3, 5, maybe even 10 years to really develop in our culture happen virtually overnight, which is pretty wild. I mean, it's a real inflection point. And I think that, again, what will happen in that is that you'll see these things that people had wrote and pontificated about, hey, this might be what the world looks like in the years to come is literally happening right before our eyes. You'll see different things that have sort of maybe been on their way out of our economy. Go ahead and move on out. And you'll see things that were sort of out on the fringes become the norm pretty quickly. Again, the Zoom call is a perfect example. So I think there will be a lot of jobs created on the other side of this as some new norms start to become our reality. And I think you'll see a lot of new businesses. I mean, to Jamie's point, I think you're going to see some really creative stuff come together. I've seen so many people that I know, just sort of as an aside, right? You scroll through Facebook in the evening, think of how many people you've seen put themselves out there digitally with their knowledge, with their skills, with their expertise. I mean, I've seen everything from people that I didn't know played music, putting little concerts on in their living room, I mean, local friends, all the way to, people writing stuff that I didn't know some people wrote so well. I've seen amazing videos come out, just people doing some really cool stuff. And, hey, it's going to take a minute to figure out how those skills can maybe transition into paying the bills. But it can happen, and I think that the people who want it the most and the people who are committed the most and willing to put in the time and energy and effort to reinvent themselves are going to come out strong.
I agree. I'm going to put in a last call out for questions as we kind of round out to almost an hour while I read these last couple ones in the chat box. Jeremy Smith asks, how long will phase 1 last?
I think, the short answer to that is it depends. It depends on how the numbers look. I imagine, they'll probably want to try to get a couple of weeks worth of data to be able to make some good decisions. But, I would expect that this version of the governor's executive order will probably last at least 3 weeks, just so you can get some data in. It could be sooner, but that feels about right based on everything I've sort of seen and heard.
I think he said he's in no rush too. I think he said he really wanted to wait and see.
Patience. They're being very patient right now. Yeah.
Philip Browning asks, aside from jobs, what is Tallahassee community's greatest need right now? It's a good one.
I think I'm going to go a little, non-traditional route in that answer and tell you that people are going to have to get used to just things being different for a little bit longer. Again, like you said, the governor's in no hurry. They're being very patient. And so, if you think things are going to be, light switch on, we're back into this here in a couple of weeks, that's just not going to be the case. It's going to take time. And I think we've all just got to be patient and realize that a lot of things are just going to play out a little differently for a while and probably into the foreseeable future. I even think, kind of putting my political hat on, think about people who are out there campaigning right now, right? A lot of people are you got qualifying happening for the next month or so for our local races. It's just completely different. Not going to be knocking on doors, not going to be having major campaign events, not going to be at these forums we're traditionally used to. So things are different, you're just going to have to get used to things being different for a while. And again, I go back to people need to get accustomed to being more creative because I think that we're going to be at least in this phased approach for the foreseeable future.
I like that. That's a great answer.
Well, thank you.
I think this might be a perfect way to end. Michael McDougall asks, when's your next golf story coming out? What you got planned, Jay?
Oh man, yeah, you're here in the shrine of golf. Yeah, golf's a big deal for me and an important part of my life, my little side hustle. You can go to jrevell.com and read some of my little golf musings from time to time. I do have talk about maybe innovating and doing some fun things during this economic pause. I've put the finishing touches on my first book. That's coming out hopefully I think next month. It's called The 9 Virtues of Golf. That'll be available on Amazon and all your other favorite little places. But excited for that. And if you like following along with my sort of day-to-day journey on that, you can follow me on any of my social media threads. Love to have you around for those.
Did you pay Michael to ask that?
I did not. I'm all about planting some seed questions in the audience, but
All right, final last question. What's the pennant on your wall? Someone's curious.
That is from the Springtime Invitational, which is a very wonderful golf tournament we host out at my beloved Capital City Country Club down the street. A couple years ago, I was blessed to win my flight in that tournament, and that was what I got to take home. So that tournament's been around since 1947. So it's got a lot of tradition, and normally happens in May. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how that shakes out here this year. But yeah, cool place.
Good ask, Hannah. Good ask.
Yeah.
I see you now. I was reading the name of blanking. No, you're good. You're good. All right. Well, thank you all so much. This was such a good group this morning. And thank you, Jay, for humoring all of our questions from left and right and up and down and all over the place.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled to talk to you. Katie, you've been doing a tremendous job with these first cups.
They were your idea, these first cup
Well,
ideas.
it's a team idea, team execution. But you've done a great job hosting them. Again, hey, who knew Katie was such a good Zoom host? You know, these things don't happen till you give them a role. So been great. Enjoy watching the show every week. Thrilled to be on here with you. Hope I didn't bore you all too much. But, hey, thanks to you all for doing what you do. We appreciate your membership, appreciate your continued support. Now is a really unique time in our community. And, I'll leave you, if you haven't had a chance, I would encourage you to make sure you're listening to our Tallahassee Business Podcast. Sarah and I produce that each week. Really proud of that one. We've had some great guests on recently. Hope you'll subscribe and maybe leave us a nice little review and comment. And be sure to tune in for all the stuff that we're putting out. Again, we're doing more than we ever have, and we do it for you. So we appreciate your support, appreciate all you do for our community, and thanks for making Tallahassee such a wonderful place.
Well, thank you guys. It's May. We made it. Have a wonderful weekend. And we will see y'all next week with Lindsay Magura from North American Properties. She's going to give us an update on the Cascades Park project and some things that they have going on over there. So have a fabulous weekend.